So a few years ago, I took a personality test, the big 5 personality traits. And a lot of it came back, as expected. I score high in creativity. I score high in industriousness. I score high in conscientiousness, in intellect. But I score low in agreeableness. And at first I was like, what? This doesn't make any sense. I'm not a disagreeable person. I'm a nice guy. I get along with everybody. Here's what that means. If you score very high in agreeableness, it might mean that you're very hesitant to give your opinion because you're a little bit conflict avoidant and you don't want to ruffle feathers or cause a disagreement. Whereas if you score lower in agreeableness, you're pretty blunt, you're pretty matter of fact, you give your opinion, you're not too concerned with how people take it. So, with that in mind, I would like to suggest that your BJJ warm-up is stupid and probably costing you students. Let's talk about it. So at most jiu-jitsu academies, they spend the first, 20 minutes doing a warm-up, followed by probably 20 minutes of drilling technique, followed by some sparring. The warm-up consists of running in circles, consists of, crab walks and bear crawls and Granby rolls and forward rolls and hip escapes and reverse hip escapes and leg lifts and squats and push-ups and so on. And the question is, what is wrong with that? Well, I'm going to give you a bunch of things that I think are wrong with that and counterproductive to the goal of creating really, really good jiu-jitsu students. Let's start with the fundamental question. What does it mean to warm up? What is a warm-up? Well, a warm-up means a few things. One is that you have an elevated heart rate. Number 2, you've broken a sweat. You're warm, you're breaking a sweat, your heart rate is elevated. And number 3, you've moved your body so that your joints, are basically lubricated and ready to go. So here's my question to you. Does your body know the difference between, let's say drilling arm bars, drilling side mount escapes, drilling mount escapes, drilling back attacks, drilling half guard attacks? Does your body know the difference between those things and doing crab walks and push-ups in terms of warming up? In other words, if you're drilling jiu-jitsu technique, are you seriously going to tell me that that is not a warm-up? That you actually need to do bear crawls and, all the stuff before you can do an armbar drill? Or before you can do a side mount escape? Or before you can do a mount escape? So the first problem I have with the warm-up is your body doesn't know the difference. Therefore, why are you not having your students drilling jiu-jitsu technique for those 20 minutes? If you train 3 days per week and your warm-up is 20 minutes per class, that means 1 hour per week you are doing non-jiu-jitsu. 1 hour per week, 4 hours per month, 50 hours per year. If you train 3 years, it's 150 hours. If you train 10 years, it's 500 hours that you have been doing non-jiu-jitsu in a jiu-jitsu class. Who is going to be the better jiu-jitsu player? The person that has trained 10 years and spent 500 hours out of those 10 years doing non-jiu-jitsu, or the person that's trained 10 years and has spent those 500 hours doing jiu-jitsu. 500 hours could be another belt. It could mean that you might actually be 1 belt higher than you otherwise would be. So that's my first problem with the jiu-jitsu warm-up, is that it is inefficient because it robs you of time when you should be drilling technique. There's an old saying in jiu-jitsu, drillers makes killers. You want to be good at jiu-jitsu, you need to drill. At my academy, we spend a full 40 to 45 minutes every class drilling. We don't do a warm-up. I'm going to talk about some fundamental movements. I'm going to talk about break falls. I'm going to talk about other things, because those are a different category. Those are not warm-ups, those are technical things. But at my academy, we don't do a warm-up. Instead, we spend that time drilling jiu-jitsu technique. It means that over the course of weeks, months, years, my students get much more infusion of technique. This is how I run my school. This is how Roy Dean runs his school. I trained directly under him for about 4 years. We never did a warm-up. We spent that time drilling technique. Go to Roy Dean's channel, look at all the belt demonstrations, look at the quality of students that he has been able to produce. Beautiful, technical, fundamentally sound jiu-jitsu. Why? Because it's focused time in the dojo where you are drilling technique and not wasting time with a quote-unquote warm-up when it's not really necessary. If the goal is simply to elevate your heart rate, warm yourself up, you can warm up doing arm bars and so on. So that's my first major problem with the warm-up. My second problem with the warm-up is that it is a very poorly designed conditioning workout, okay? I'm not a strength and conditioning coach. Now, I could be a strength and conditioning coach because I've spent the last 16 years engrossed in physical culture. I've watched thousands of hours of people working out on YouTube, and I've experimented with different modalities. I've tried kettlebells and Olympic lifting. I've tried all this stuff, right? I could probably program people's fitness. But here's the thing. Having people do bear crawls and, whatever, leg lifts, squats, some burpees, some push-ups, a few sprawl drills, that's not really a proper programming for a conditioning workout. If you're serious about your jiu-jitsu, you should be going to the gym. You should be lifting weights. You should be doing strength and conditioning. You should be doing mobility drills. You should be doing all the stuff. But in a jiu-jitsu context, in class, when I'm being paid to teach jiu-jitsu, I'm not being paid for strength and conditioning. I'm being paid to teach jiu-jitsu. Therefore, that 20 minutes of getting people to do squats and leg lifts is a really terribly programmed workout. It's not a good workout. Now, to the person getting off the couch that has never trained anything, they're out of shape, they're trying jiu-jitsu for the first time, they're coming in, they're completely out of shape, they're overweight, whatever. To them, the warm-up might seem like a serious workout. But after a few weeks, after a couple months, doing your 10 push-ups, doing your 10 squats, doing your 10 whatever is irrelevant. It is not going to provide any level of higher fitness. I do make a distinction if you're running a competition class. If you're running a comp class, then yeah, the goal is to really hammer your students. And there's a context there for working your students at a very, very high level. But for just a general jiu-jitsu class, your warm-up is not really providing a higher level of fitness. I've heard a lot of Brazilians, the old school guys, say, you have to get your students very tired before you train jiu-jitsu so that you express only technique and no muscle. So here's the third problem I have with the warm-up. There is no evidence from the world of sports physiology that a tired body, that a fatigued body is going to be better prepared to learn technical movement patterns than a rested body. It's simply not, the case. The old school methodologies, they simply don't produce better athletes. Getting your students tired before they have to learn and amass and create that mental plasticity and learn those movement patterns, internalize what you're trying to learn to do with your body. All of those things are better. They're better accomplished when the person is rested, okay? That's my third problem with the classic warm-up. I just don't think it serves a lot of purpose. But probably my biggest problem with the warm-up is kind of a philosophical one. Here's a question for you. At most jiu-jitsu academies, there is a revolving door of people that come in, they train for a while, maybe a week, 2 weeks, 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, and then they disappear and you never see them again. Here's the question. Why do people quit jiu-jitsu? Why do people quit jiu-jitsu? And the flip side of that is, why do some people train jiu-jitsu as a lifestyle on an ongoing basis? You have one group that is really into it. You have another group that tries it for a while. They train for 6 months, maybe a year, and then they're gone. If you ask people why they quit jiu-jitsu, you ask 10 people, you're going to get 10 slightly different responses. Someone might say, oh, I got busy with work, my schedule changed, oh, I've just been dealing with some injuries and I got to recover. Like, right, reasons. They give you reasons. The same thing when you ask people that enjoy jiu-jitsu and do it as a lifestyle, why do you do jiu-jitsu all the time? Well, they're going to also give you a bunch of different answers. They might say, oh, I love the fitness, I love the camaraderie, I like the self-defense skills, etc. I would like to suggest that the reason that people stay and the reason people quit is far, far more fundamental. People quit jiu-jitsu when they're not having enough fun. And people continue to do jiu-jitsu when they are having a lot of fun. Think about all the people in the world that decide, oh, I'm going to learn to play the guitar. You play the guitar for a few months, eventually it goes back in the case, you slide it under your bed, and you never play guitar again. Most people that start things, regardless, most people eventually quit. Well, why do people quit? Well, they quit because they don't love it. They're not having that much fun. Whereas the people that play guitar forever, they love it. They're having a really good time. Well, what is the least fun activity in a jiu-jitsu academy? In the hierarchy of things that are fun, the number one most fun thing to do in jiu-jitsu is to spar. Rolling is fun. Everybody loves to roll, right? Everybody loves to roll. A lot of students, once they get to a certain level, they start coming into class late, they start cheating it a little bit, they skip the warm-up, they sometimes even skip the technical drilling because they want to just roll. They want to just come in and roll. That's the most fun. The second most fun thing, and it's not even that close, rolling is super fun, drilling is kind of fun, but in a way it's like eating your vegetables, right? You have to do the work to get good at jiu-jitsu. You've got to drill. And it's fun. It's not as fun as rolling, but it's part of it. At least you're stimulated. You're learning new techniques. You're developing more capability. You're learning to, solutions to the problems you face in jiu-jitsu. The least fun thing in any academy by a country mile is the warm-up. What's that old joke? People can't wait to get their purple belt so they can start skipping the warm-up, right? The least fun thing in a jiu-jitsu academy is the stupid, mindless, mind-numbingly boring workout. And the more severe you make it, the harder you make it, the more old school you make it. And look, I trained at an academy, I won't say where. The warm-up was 40 to 45 minutes and it was brutal. Right? You're dragging people down the mat, you're loading people on your back and running in circle. Like, it was brutal. When I would be done with that warm-up, I was like, I'm done. I'm ready to go home. And I was still looking at the fact that we had to drill technique and then we had an hour of sparring. So the more severe you make your warm-up, the least fun it is, and the more people are gonna just quit. Nobody likes the warm-up in jiu-jitsu. I mean, I suppose maybe there's a sadistic person. Probably there's someone out there that's going to say, oh, I love the warm-up. Okay, you're a weirdo. Most people in the world hate the jiu-jitsu warm-up. Nobody goes to class because of the stupid warm-up. They go there to learn jiu-jitsu and to spar and to see their friends and to have fun. If you're running a jiu-jitsu school, the the more fun you can make it, the more you're going to ensure that you're going to have high retention and you're going to have students that want to come to class consistently because it's fun. So that's my biggest reason why I think the warm-up is stupid, okay? That's my biggest reason why I think the warm-up is stupid. It's not fun. Now, the only exception that I make at my school is we do drill fundamental movements. We don't do them every single class, but we do drill fundamental movements. Fundamental movements are movement patterns that have applicability to jiu-jitsu. Hip escapes, bridges, right? All those movements, break fall drills on nights when we're doing judo throws, when we're doing takedowns, we do our break fall drills, forward break falls, rear break falls, side break falls, etc. But here's the thing, we don't do those as a warm-up. We do those because those are techniques that have to be mastered to be good at them. If you're going to be doing judo and you get thrown, you have to learn to configure yourself in the air so that you can land properly. That's a technique. That is a technique. That has nothing to do with a warm-up. It has everything to do with a technique. So I have no problem if you want to run your school such that you're just doing some fundamental movements every class. I went up to Montana to train with my friend David Cronenwet, runs a great school up there, super great. They do some fundamental movements for about 8 minutes at the start of each class. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. 8 minutes of some technically based fundamental movements, no problem at all from me. But again, it's a compressed thing. It's just, a warm-up that has some technical merit. So that's really my opinion on this. If I've ruffled some feathers, then so be it. I am someone that questions authority always. It's how I'm wired. I don't accept that we should do something simply because this is how it's always been done. Look at the way Olympic athletes are trained today. The modern athletes, the modern training methodologies, it's very different than it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. A lot of the old school stuff just doesn't work very well. And in my opinion, the warm-up is kind of an antiquated thing that doesn't really need to be part of a jiu-jitsu class. I'm out.